Hi there, listeners. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I'm Grace Becker. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and an enthusiast of life. And today I'm joined by my coworker and colleague, Christy Wilkie.
Hello.
Hi, Christy. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm so good. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Yes, I'm so excited to have Christy. Christy is a licensed independent clinical social worker. She's worked with Dakota Family Services for a little over 20 years.
Yeah, a little over 20 years.
20 years.
It's weird because I'm still like 30. So I started here when I was like 10.
You started...
Honestly. Not really, but...
Do you ever still feel like, what am I doing? Even
all the
after
time.
20 years.
All of the time. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. And then it's like I look around now and like I'm the adult in the room. I don't know about this.
But Christy, you mainly provide therapy to children, adolescents, and young adults, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I
most part.
have some clients that are outside of that, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then, Christy, you work really hard to make sure that you're the ideal therapist for your clients, doing what you can to fit their needs, which I can attest to. Christy's also my supervisor for my license. She knows what she's doing. Even and if she doesn't, she'll just go along with me and be like, yeah, that's confusing.
It is a pet peeve of mine when people pretend to know what they're doing because they're afraid to look stupid. And I am not afraid to look stupid because it's not I can't be expected to know everything. Mm-hmm. It's like human beings are so complex that the second that you think that you know everything about the human condition is the second that you've lost your edge.
Yeah, you lost your touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because everything is complicated. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know if that's talked about enough. I think there's especially a pressure for people in a professional like mental health medical role where they are maybe expected to know everything or to be able to get the answer really quick. So,
well, it's more detrimental to pretend like you know what you're doing than to just be like, oh no, I'll walk this journey with you. Let's figure it out. We'll figure it out together.
Yeah, I love that. Christy also has a podcast that she co-hosts with Lucas Mitzel, who also works with us at Dakota Family Services. Their podcast is called Is It Just Me?, where you talk about things all mental health related.
All sorts of stuff. Yes. Yeah. All mental health related. We try to come up with things that are relevant to what's going on in the world too. Just because it's 2025 and it is a dog eat dog world out there right now. And
honestly,
it is people are struggling. So we're trying to help people through the best we can.
I guess I can't get enough of you and Lucas because I will go listen to your podcast. I'm like, yes, you're so right.
It's so funny. It's been a really, really fun thing to do. So like when you asked me to be on yours, I was like, oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's so much fun.
It is fun. Yeah.
How long have you and Lucas had your podcast going for?
Wow, that's a really great question. I'm going to go with, it's got to be almost a year, maybe 9 months to a year.
So your 1 year anniversary is close?
I want to say it's probably around April.
How are you going to celebrate?
Whoa, that's a really great question. We're going to probably have to come up with something.
Yeah.
Because if we can make it a year, that's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Definitely needs to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining me. I love having you here. One of the reasons I wanted Christy on this episode is because I know she has a passion and expertise for today's topic. And today we're talking about boundaries and self-care.
One of my favorite things, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. They're so important.
Yes.
I think those words get thrown around a lot. Boundaries, self-care. But what does that even mean?
Right. I think it's become very like cliche to be like self-care, like go get a pedicure, blah, blah. And it's like, it's just way more than that.
Yeah.
It's a much deeper subject than just like binging Netflix shows on Saturday to make yourself feel better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what?
What? I mean, it's fine. That can also be a form of self-care.
Yeah. But it's deeper than that.
Right.
Definitely. I get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious, have you ever had a client come to you and they bring up boundaries, self-care? Do you ever hear a common theme with those things?
I do. I would say especially in the Midwest, people are people pleasers and they don't want to make anybody upset or rock the apple cart or do anything. And they're like, well, what if I set a boundary? They're going to not like me or they're going to think a certain way about me. And then they think that it's selfish to set boundaries and selfish to take care of themselves. That's the biggest one I hear of. And also with a lot of parents especially, and even young adults and kids are so busy and parents are so busy and the time issue of finding, when am I going to find time to take care of myself?
Yes.
And it's like, I get it, but we're going to find it.
And it's also an adjustment period too, if you have time and then you go to not having time.
Totally. And I don't think people understand that setting a boundary is most of the time not interpreted by the other person as you being a dick. It's not. Like, if you were to set a boundary with me, I'd be like, absolutely, go you, slay queen.
Yeah.
Like, proud of you.
Yeah.
And then, like, when I feel like I set a boundary for me, it's like,
yeah, like, oh, shit,
I totally
they're gonna
respect
hate
it.
me.
Yes,
Yeah.
I totally respect it when other people do it. And then it's like, it is uncomfortable until you practice a little bit and you realize, oh, people aren't going to hate you if you say no.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing that people struggle to overcome.
100%.
Yeah.
And not even in families and relationships, but like work, like your work environment. You can set boundaries for yourself.
Yeah,
at
everywhere.
work. Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah,
boundaries are
versatile.
sexy. That's what Jesse Lamb, who also works with us, he tells me that all the time.
Yeah, boundaries are sexy. I love that. Well, that's a good segue into talking about maybe some myths or misunderstandings.
Let's do it.
About boundaries and self-care. So one that you said right off the bat was a lot of people think both are selfish. Yeah. Tell me about that.
I say this so often that self-care isn't selfish. It's actually like the most selfless thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. You can't take care of the people around you if you're not taking care of yourself. And why would the people around you want like the not greatest version of you? Because you're not willing to take the time to like get your mentals right or get your body rested or whatever the case may be. The people around you they need you rested. They need you to be taking care of yourself because they're not taking care of you all the time, especially if you're a parent. Like there's a lot of giving that goes out for a lot of people. And so it's not selfish at all.
No. And two, like if you are able to take care of yourself, whether that's your physical health, your mental, emotional, whatever it may be, then you can also give to others.
100%.
Yeah.
I have one of my friends she's got 2 little kids and she is, I mean, every time I talk to her on my way to work every morning, and every time I get off of the phone with her, I'm like, I don't understand how you do it. Like, I don't get it because she's got 2 little kids. She's got a super crazy job. Her husband is very busy. He works crazy hours. And I always keep saying, girl, you have got to find time for yourself. Yeah. She's like, when? She just keeps yelling at me. And I was like, do you remember when you took that trip to Chicago and you came back and you felt so rested and so refreshed and you're like, Christy, you're right. I need to do this more often. And did we do that? No, she didn't, because she has a hard time finding the time.
Well, and two, like because you don't always need to take a trip for it to be it, but it helps because it's like, okay, this is for sure my designated alone time from the kids, or if the husband doesn't come with, from him too. Yeah,
totally. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, that's the only time that they don't feel guilty for taking that time, because it's like if I'm literally out of the state and you cannot physically get to me, then it's okay to take the time. But when you're in town and if something just comes up, there's like this guilt that comes over people. That's like, well, I have to do all these things. I have to do all these. No, you don't. Right. You don't have to volunteer for every organization. You don't have to work the extra hours. You don't have to do all those things. If it doesn't serve you and your people, well.
Yeah, and you don't owe somebody something because they're your spouse, because they're your parent, because they're your whatever. If you're not capable of giving them what they're asking, that's absolutely okay.
100%.
To set that boundary.
Right.
To do whatever.
And like I said, you'd never really know what people are going through. And so it's like, on top of just the normal everyday stuff that we all have to do, everybody else has extra stuff on top of there. None of us are not going through something, And it's like, you have to give yourself the grace and the time to be able to process those tough things that are also going on top of just the hustle and bustle of everyday stuff.
Yeah, basically. So, and to make it short, it's not selfish.
No.
To take time for yourself or to set boundaries with people.
No. And I'm also a Peloton enthusiast. And one of my favorite instructors says that in nearly every class. She always says, self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. And it's like, sometimes you have to have that on repeat in your ear a little bit to finally be like, click, and have it go, okay, I'm not being selfish. I'm the opposite of that.
Yeah. You need it said to you. You need it told to you in different ways, in the same way, so many times.
Right. And I think it's important to role model it for people, because if I for example, like if I came to work and I never practiced self-care and I just ran myself into the ground all of the time because work is the most important thing in the world and blah, 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 that would rub off on everybody in this building and be like, well, Christy's doing that, so we can't do it either. But if I come in and I was like, I didn't feel great yesterday, I needed to take a day or half a day, or I needed to work from home, it'd be like, okay, it gives other people permission to do that for themselves when you can role model it for other people.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I like how you used the work example as well,
Yes.
to reiterate that it's not always with family or with friends. Sometimes
Right.
it's in a work setting too.
Yeah. We spend most of our time at work.
Yeah, that's true.
So you got to figure out how to find balance with that. Otherwise, you just get swallowed up by it.
And that leads to feeling burnt out
Right.
and resentment of your job and
Right.
the people you work with. Which,
Right. Which we don't need any of that. We don't
Yeah.
need any of that.
No.
And then if you burn yourself out there, then you really don't even have the energy to go home and do yoga or, to breathe or do whatever it is that brings you joy. Legos.
Yeah.
If you don't have the energy, you're not doing the self-care.
I also hear a lot for a myth. Another myth is that self-care is always indulgent or a luxurious thing
Oh, yeah.
that you have to do.
Yep. And that's not true.
Yeah.
Self-care can be, not that it's easy. It's hard. That's why we're talking about it. But we have to readjust what our perception of what self-care is. Self-care can be something it's not stupid because that's a judging word and we listen and we don't judge.
We listen and we don't judge.
But like it can be as easy as literally taking 5 minutes to open up your windows and breathe in the air. It can park far away from the door and just take the extra time to walk and like get into your thoughts. It doesn't have to be this like spa day.
Yeah.
That you're spending $800 on or whatever it is. Self-care is free.
Yeah.
Take a bath.
It can be maybe simple.
Yeah.
It can be simple. It can
Totally.
be drinking water.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I'll find myself dry. My mouth is dry.
Yes.
I'm like, I need some water.
Yeah.
I need to sit down.
My boy Doug at the front desk, he gave me a sticker that says hydrate or dihydrate. I keep it on my desk because it reminds me to drink water. But yeah, simple things like that. It doesn't have to be opulent.
Yeah.
A lot of people really, their self-care is in like doing the dishes or getting something done or folding a load of laundry, or a lot of that is just taking the time to do those tasks that are just built up that you don't have time to do. I'm not that way, but I know a lot of people who find a lot of self-care in getting things done.
Well, and self-care and setting boundaries is not necessarily a one-size-fits-all.
No.
So for you, like, it's not necessarily the task completing things that fill your cup that make you feel that way.
Right.
But for someone, it does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the same with working out. I mean, I love to work out. That is my self-care. I make time for it every day. That's what it is. And that does not bring a lot of people the same amount of joy, that it brings me. And it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
You got to find your own thing.
Well, when you have your Peloton person saying, like, self-care is...
Yeah, not selfish. Like when but this is we're off topic. Now I'm down a rabbit hole, but this was what you signed up for, Grace. We become like the people that we spend the most time with, right? And so if I'm spending an hour and a half with super motivating Peloton instructors every morning to set the intention for my day, you're more willing to carry that through the day. And so then the people that you're around kind of also benefit from that because you're not miserable.
Yeah.
Where you're carrying through that intention for the rest of the day. And it's like, oh, okay. I don't want to come to work and have people think, oh my gosh, she's miserable and unhappy all the time. Because I'm not.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that. Like,
Yeah.
you are who you spend your time with.
Absolutely.
And if you're around people who are consistently maybe in the negative with those thoughts and acting in that way, then you're going to also exhibit that.
Yeah, which goes back or circles back into having healthy boundaries. Yeah. Like if you find yourself in a relationship with people or have people in your life that are exhausting and that spill your bucket instead of fill your bucket, you maybe have to take a look at where you set those boundaries with those people, because you don't want to find yourself in a bunch of relationships that are more one-sided, where you're just giving, and you're not getting anything back. And sometimes you just have to take a step back and look at your relationships and be which ones are fueling your soul and which ones are draining it.
There's signs. If I feel like I'm consistently giving to this person and they're not giving back to me, that's your sign. You need to take a step back.
Yeah.
You need to set some boundaries. You need to do something with that.
If you spend time with people and you leave feeling exhausted and thankful that the time was over instead of replenished and like energized, that is that's a good sign that you maybe need to set some healthy boundaries with those people.
Yeah. Or if you often feel like you're always saying yes to things you don't want to do.
Because you feel guilty.
Yeah. Yep. Because you feel guilty about it. Or if you feel like you're being taken advantage of too.
Yeah.
I think is an important one.
Totally.
As well.
I think so. It's really important to listen to the trusted people in your life too, because there are times when your outsiders could look at a relationship and be like, you're getting taken advantage of. Like, this person is toxic to your life, and you don't see it when you're in it. And so having those trusted people in your life to be like, have you thought about maybe setting a boundary with this person and maybe not spending as much time with them? It's like, okay, if somebody says that to you, it's worth taking a thought and being like, oh, okay, maybe I need to reassess this.
Yeah. Another myth that I was thinking of is that self-care and setting boundaries, it's not always enjoyable.
No.
It can be hard.
Yep.
Whether it's like working out, some people, maybe they don't do it very often. So when they go to do it, they're struggling to get through it.
Yep.
That's hard. It's not always going to be enjoyable.
No.
You're going to feel great afterwards.
Right.
Because I know when I go to like a workout class, I'm like, oh God, this person's going to beat my ass. I'm going to be sweating in all sorts of places. I didn't know I could sweat.
Yes.
But I feel so good afterwards.
Yep.
And like you said, it sets the intention for my day.
Absolutely. I think one of the more common, I guess, dynamics that I see where this is in children who have parents of divorce, where like maybe mom is shit talking dad or dad is like bashing mom or whatever, and the kid is in the middle. And learning how to set a boundary with your parents, even as an adult human being, to be like, I don't want you to talk to me about that. Like, you and mom can talk about that, but I don't want to be a part of that. And even as kids, they find themselves in those really crappy situations. And it is really hard to set boundaries, especially with your parents. But the amount of people I talk to in a week where those are the people that we're talking about setting boundaries with, it's tough. There's nothing easy about that conversation.
Especially if you're a little kid or a young teenager, whoever, and maybe you don't have a support who knows what they're doing,
right?
Who can be like, hey, that's actually not okay. We need to get you some help. We need to do something about that.
Yes. Yeah. And so advocating for kids too, especially if you see it happening, it could literally life-changing to step in and just be like, hey, I think that maybe we're putting this kid in the middle and that's not where they should be.
Yeah. So it's not always enjoyable.
No.
But it's necessary for long-term well-being.
Right. I would say, in my experience in setting boundaries, it's maybe 5 minutes of uncomfortableness. Is that a word?
It's a word today.
Today it is.
We're going with it.
But the payoff lasts forever, honestly.
And a lot of times you're not going to see the end goal because your brain is going to say this person's going to hate you for setting this boundary, for being stern with them.
Right.
When in reality, it's going to be so much better for you. In the long run.
And if you're surrounding yourself with people who get mad at you for setting healthy boundaries for you, maybe not your people.
Yeah, maybe find some other people.
Yes, maybe find some other people. Like, I have friends, and I make a lot of plans because I'm a happy hour girl. I love seeing my friends. I love being with my friends. But there are times when I make the plan and then I'm like, oh my God, work was really hard, or other stuff in your life kind of pops up and I'll have to text and say, hey, I can't do it today. And if I ever had a friend to be like, that's rude, or like, screw you, or anything like that, they're not my friend. Like, if I cancel plans, most of the time they're like, okay, great.
Yeah, they're like proud of you.
Yeah, take care
do
of
what
you.
you need.
Absolutely. Like, we'll get it next time. It's fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's great that you have those people in your life. And it can be hard to find those people.
It can.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey. But I won't have people in my life that will respond in any other way than that. And that's a boundary that I set for myself.
Well, and that's how you get to finding those people, is if you're consistent with saying, no, I don't deserve that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to settle for that.
Yeah.
I'm going to find someone who can give me what I need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's not selfish.
No, it's sexy.
It sure is.
It sure is. Is there any other myths, or maybe misunderstandings about self-care boundaries that you've heard?
I think sometimes people feel like, well, a lot of times, I guess, is that because somebody else has it worse than you do, that you can't complain about what's going on in your life. And that gets in the way of people taking care of themselves. Because it's like, and it doesn't matter. Like, you can't compare your position to somebody else's position just because somebody else's dog died the other day and you're overwhelmed because you have a lot of laundry that needs to get done.
Yeah.
You can't, it's all relative. Like to not compare yourself to somebody else and just be like, I think I should be able to get through this because everybody else is. We're not doing that.
I hear the word normal thrown out
Yeah.
a lot. Well, is that normal? Is this normal?
Right.
Normal is a setting on a washing machine. It's subjective.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is. I think about, especially if you're in a field with people who are doing the same thing that you do day in and day out, and it looks like they're managing it better than you feel like you're managing it. It's very easy to be like, what's wrong with me that everybody else seems to be going through this and doing it fine and it's not an issue for them, but I'm really struggling with it.
Almost like imposter syndrome.
Yes, totally. Yeah. Or like even I think of police officers because I think they should have mandatory therapy, that everybody should just have to go and sit in a room with somebody.
Any first responders, anything
like that. Because I think that the bond that they have is so tough, right? That it's like, if this person can go out and they saw the exact same thing that I did and they went through the exact same situation that I did, and they're not having an emotional response, that I shouldn't have one either. And Lucas says this all the time, that you shouldn't should on yourself. Like if you're struggling with something, that's okay. You don't, everybody experiences things differently. Everybody's background is different. Everybody's triggered by different things. You have no idea what a person has been through in their lives. Yeah. So like, give yourself some grace.
Yeah. Honestly.
and if you're not feeling well, you're not feeling well. It doesn't matter how everybody else is feeling.
And when you use words like I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done this, that kind of like what Lucas is getting at, is it places judgment on yourself.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely not going to help your mental health.
No.
It's going to just spiral.
Right.
When you do that.
Because you feel how you feel. And there is no wrong way to feel. I say that a lot. And see, rabbit holes. I think of people who are grieving. They do that a lot. Where they're like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like, I should be over it. I shouldn't talk to other people about it. I'm sure everybody is sick of me talking about it. You know, and it's like, grief doesn't have a timeline. I mean, in the DSM sort of it does, but screw that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of judgment with people who are going through grief and thinking that they should or shouldn't be in a certain way. It's like, it doesn't, you feel the way you feel and that's fine. We just got to take care of it.
Yeah. I tell clients, your thoughts and feelings are valid.
Absolutely.
Your actions are not always valid.
That's true. Your response is not always, but feelings for sure. Yeah.
Feelings, valid. Thoughts, if you are thinking an irrational thought due to something, valid. However, if you respond out of that in a judgmental way, in a debilitating way, that's not always valid.
No.
Because it's not helpful.
No, but that's why we go to therapy.
Yeah.
Is to help us find effective ways to communicate things.
Get in therapy, everyone.
Yes, everybody. Healthy people go to therapy. I say that all the time. And this is another thing, is that because people compare things, they're like, well, I don't need to waste your hour because people have way more important things going on in their lives than I do. No, they don't. If it's bothering you, and if you've even had a thought that you should maybe go see a therapist, go see one.
Do it.
Yes. There's no problem too big or too small.
If it's important to you, it's important to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Absolutely. What are some signs that you have seen in other people where you would recommend that they practice some self-care or that they work on setting boundaries? What are some either stories or signs that you've had?
Not sleeping, because they're riled up during the day because they're doing so much stuff that it takes them an extra amount of time to decompress. Now you're running yourself ragged on 0 amounts of sleep, which is not good. A lot of times it's people not doing things that I know they want to be doing or that they enjoy doing, and they're not making time for those things.
Yeah. Or the opposite.
Yes.
Saying yes to things they don't want to do.
Right. 100%. Like I've got some friends, if they don't show up to golf, I'm like, ooh, bad week.
Text them, hey, you're not here. What's going on?
Right.
It's happy hour. Where are you?
Yep. I would say weight gain or loss. Appetite is a huge indicator that we're not taking care of ourselves very well. And really just attitude, irritability. I mean, when I'm not well, I am irritable. Like I'm snappy, and I know that I need to like take a step back and be like, okay, let's readjust what we have going on in here.
I think that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the most challenging aspects to this is noticing the signs.
Totally.
And sometimes you need someone like a therapist or a friend, a partner to point it out. Hey, you're not yourself.
Right.
You're getting a little irritable. You just called me a bitch.
Yeah.
Let's figure this out.
Right. Or getting like worked up over things that they would not normally get worked up about. It's like, it's just a whatever. Like, and you can't say that to them because it's invalidating. But in my head, I'm like, they're getting really worked up about something that I don't know that the response is warranting what the problem is.
Yeah. Well, it can be like a symptom, a criteria is when you react to the situation as if it's a bigger threat than it really is.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah.
We see that a lot. A lot. It's really important, I think, to learn how to communicate with people who are burnt out without putting them on the defensive. Because you don't want someone to be defensive, be like, oh my gosh, you're so irritable, or you're not eating, or what, you're not doing anything you like to do. But I always go say, hey, I noticed that you're not going to golf. What's up with that?
Yeah.
Like, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Instead of approaching it in like a attacking way that puts them on the defensive.
Yeah. Because then that's going to just further, when they're in that defense mode, that's just going to hurt them, make their ability to seek that self-care. It's going to make them feel guilty for it, that it's selfish.
Right.
When it's not.
And then it fuels depression.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle that we get into. It's like they're probably judging themselves already as it is, because they probably know that they don't feel right. And then you have somebody noticing that they don't feel right. And then it's like, oh my gosh, now everybody's worried about me. And then people don't want to be worried about because then they feel like a burden. I mean, it's just like, what a vicious cycle, honestly.
Yeah. And I like how you brought it up that there's more productive ways of checking in on someone.
Totally.
If you notice those signs for them, than saying, hey, what's going on? I noticed that you weren't at golf. Is there anything I can do to help you? Right. Very helpful.
I think another sign that maybe gets overlooked a lot is silence. If you haven't heard from somebody in a while, or you haven't, like you're used to seeing them post on social media, or they usually text them like throughout the day, and then all of a sudden they're like, not doing that.
They just drop off.
Yeah. It's like,
what happened to you?
Yeah. What's going on here?
Yeah. I think about that with clients sometimes. I haven't seen them in a while, and it's not that maybe they didn't have anything where I maybe fear that they hurt themselves, but I haven't seen them in a while. I'm like, last time I saw you, you were struggling with like self-care, setting boundaries. I wonder what's happening.
Right. Not showering. That's another one. You said, not taking your own personal hygiene into account. And a lot of these are bordering on like symptoms of depression, but I kind of feel like they're closely related. Like we're trying to not get to the point where we're depressed. And so when you find one or more of these things are happening in your life, like let's take care of it at the beginning so we don't have to have a full major depressive episode before we take ourselves seriously and be like, oh shit, how do we get here?
So are there other signs that you've seen where maybe someone is showing that they need to practice self-care?
I would say the other one that I see a lot is just not doing the tasks that they would normally do, like falling behind in, doing.
A lot of these are depression symptoms.
I know it is, but it is true though, because if you are desperate, and I'm talking about desperate need of self-care, right?
Yeah.
It is going to mimic depression symptoms.
Yeah.
And I think what people need to understand is that it doesn't have to get to the point where it's this severe before we need to take care of ourselves, right? Like if we do it consistently all the time and you're kind of staying on top of it, then it's not going to get to that point. And so if it's getting to the point where you're feeling some of these things that we're talking about, it probably has moved into depression. And so you have to kind of get on the front end of it and be very proactive in your self-care so that it doesn't get to that point where we're like drowning, Yeah.
I've also heard, I do hear that a lot. I think that's maybe the most common symptoms or signs that I've seen for people. Also have heard the opposite, where maybe they're taking on so much because I'll take that task on at work. Yep, I'll get that report done. Yep, I'll take on that group meeting. I'll lead that because they're the go-to person and they are capable of doing all these things. Yep. But is that a realistic expectation? Can you really do all those things in one day, one week?
No, you can't. And again, I think it goes back to feeling guilty because like, well, if I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? And then sometimes people are a little perfectionistic and they're like, if somebody else does it, they're going to do it wrong. So I'm just going to do it so it's done right. Let people mess up. Nothing has to be done the way that you think it needs to be done all the time. And if you don't have time to do it, it's either not going to get done or somebody else is going to pick it up.
Yeah, and it's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. I think I'm totally stereotype. Stereotype. Thank you.
Stereotyping.
Oh my God, I'm stereotyping. But I'm going to make up statistics. I feel like this is especially hard for people in their 20s and 30s because there's a lot of like keeping up with whatever is going on with other people. I mean, I'm saying I felt this in my 20s and 30s, where especially at work, if somebody asked you to do something, like you wanted to climb and you wanted to be like establish yourself as somebody who was good at their job and who people wanted to go to. And so you tend to take on a lot of stuff when people are like, you're good at this, do it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I am good at this. And you like the pat on the back because it feels good.
You people pleasing too.
Yep. And
like
and sometimes people know how to do that. Like they find the people that they know will do it and do it well, and then and they'll put it on you. And that's which I understand 100%. But then that's on you to set a boundary to be like, I've got too much on my plate right now. I can't take on another thing. Yeah. And realize that isn't going to stop your forward progress in your job or in your personal life. As I think in your 20s, people are getting married and they're having babies and they're buying houses and nice cars. And it's like, you see everybody kind of in this life, like doing all these things. And you're like, I need to, it's like this hustle culture.
Yeah. Like you need to be at the same place in life that everyone else was at that age or that spot.
And social media is great in a lot of ways. We've got a podcast on this too, but and in a lot of ways it's really difficult because people post a highlight reel and everybody thinks that's like that's where they should be. And if they're not there, then they have to climb and get to that point where they're at every basketball game, that they're taking the pictures, that they're getting promoted at their job, that they're going on vacations, that they're buying the houses. And that's also not great for the mental health. So like to always keep in mind that the social media stuff is like a snippet of what's really going on, because it can really get in the way of your own self-care and your own mental health by doing that comparison game.
Yeah, because it's so rare that people post, this is how I'm struggling.
Right.
This is what's going on. Majority of the time, people are going to be posting the highlights, the positive things that are happening.
Especially this time of year, because like the new year and everybody's like recapping their year. And I think it's really hard if you had a crappy one and everyone's like, I did this and I went to this place and we had all these, all these fun things. And you're like, why isn't my life like that?
Yeah.
It really gets in the way of you taking care of yourself.
I've definitely fallen into that before, comparing myself to other people and where they're at in their time or their space in life. But I
think it's hard. It's really hard not to until you realize, for the most part, that the stuff that you see on Facebook doesn't always match what you know to be going on in real life.
Yeah. Do you say Facebook?
I am 44 years old.
Hey, yes, I have a Facebook.
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Visco.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard for people to look at that and realize, that's not where you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be exactly where you are.
I think do I have one like that? Yes, you are exactly where you need to be. I have a sign in my office that says that, with a little frog holding a briefcase, walking through mushroom field.
Animals doing human stuff. We like it.
We do love it. Yeah, good reminders. There's another one that says, when things change inside of you, things change around you.
That's also
true.
Which
is true in this as well. So if you start to change inside of you and be effective with setting boundaries and practicing self-care, you'll notice that, hey, my boss stopped asking me to do 10 million things in a week. Love it. Now I don't feel so overwhelmed with all these tasks I have to do.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. And if you feel overwhelmed, acknowledge it and do something about it. Because I think there's a lot of us that can acknowledge it. It's the doing something about it that's hard. And which goes back to the time thing. And I have literally in my office sat with people and written out their schedules and what they have to do and what the time is and whatever. And most of the time, I would say 99.9% of the time, it is not that they don't have the time. It's that they're not using the time for the things that they need.
Yeah, effectively using their time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing wrong with like scrolling TikTok, right? Like if that makes you feel good for a while and it's just kind of like a distraction from life, that's fine. But it's not self-care.
Take a lap.
Yeah, take a lap, do some thinking, figure out, do
a little journaling.
Yeah, a little meditation. And it doesn't have to be long. Like if you're spending an hour on TikTok every night, take 10 of those minutes and just change it into something that's just a little bit more purposeful.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think a lot of the times people think that 5 minutes isn't enough. That's plenty of time.
It is.
So that can make a big difference in your mental emotional state.
Just to center yourself and be like, okay, what is my intention for the day? What am I doing? Where am I going? What happened today during the day? Why did I get so angry? And like, just do some self-reflection and be like, oh, that really made me angry that day. Why did I get so mad about that? Like, what was triggering about that to me?
Yeah, and consistency is key too. Doing that once a year,
That's not going to do it.
not going to be very effective.
No.
But if you are mindful and you practice it consistently every day, every other day, whatever it looks like for you, that is going to be helpful. That's when you're going to notice the change in your life.
And you can find them everywhere. And again, meditation, progressive muscle relaxation, which I love. Not everything is for everyone, but if you find something you like, there's a shit ton of free apps out there that will get you meditations or a quick yoga or a progressive muscle relaxation, which is dreamy. Just find a voice that you like and just kind of let them talk to you.
Yeah.
Because meditations, do you ever listen to meditations?
Yes, I have.
They're so good.
Yeah, they are.
And they're so positive, which comes back to like what's going on and what's coming into your brain. What are the messages that you're surrounding yourself with that are setting your intention for the day to kind of get you in a space to be able to do what you need to do?
Yeah.
A 5-minute meditation where they're telling you about how badass you are. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing, honestly, how much it helps.
What are some more self-care, specifically self-care? What are some ways that people could practice self-care?
It depends on what you like to do, but like a good old everything shower, that's self-care.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a big proponent of taking PTO.
Yes.
Like, I am a boss at it. I'm so good at taking it. I think, again, a lot of people feel guilty taking PTO, or they feel like, don't feel guilty about it. It's literally a benefit that you work for.
Yeah. You're
Like,
working for this.
Yes.
They want
Use
you
it.
want to use it.
Yes. Use your PTO.
A good work environment would want you to use it.
Absolutely. And I think a good work environment also is self-care. If you're finding yourself in a toxic work environment, being able to set a boundary and saying, maybe this isn't for me, like, get out. That's fine.
And that's one of the reasons I love where I work is because there was a group that I was helping facilitate, and I wasn't really doing it for me. I wasn't enjoying it. And I talked to our clinic director about it. So supportive.
Yeah. You set a boundary.
Yeah.
Like a boss. I was
Like
so
a
proud
boss.
of you. I was so proud of you.
Yeah, you were really coaching me to that.
Yeah.
You're like, you can do it.
You
They're not
can.
gonna fire you.
No. It's it's just I think it's important to realize when you just need some time to yourself. Make yourself a good meal.
Yeah.
Like, that's excellent self-care.
Get the sleep you need.
Yeah.
People okay, again, I don't know the exact numbers, but I have heard somewhere that people who men maybe need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Women tend to need 9 or more hours of sleep. It just depends on the person.
Yeah. Sleep.
Yeah, get sleep, drink water.
And again, if you're a person who has a hard time going to bed, sleep hygiene is super important. Create a routine. Turn off the TV. Turn off the screens.
Go to your doctor's appointments.
Yeah, good one.
Go to your doctor's appointments. Get your checkups.
Yep.
The self-care.
Absolutely.
Mental health, going to therapist.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Eye doctor, dentist, all of those people.
Yeah, that is all self-care.
All of it.
And people think a lot of times that that's not, but it is.
It totally is.
Yeah, you can go run your errands and get self-care done all in one swoop.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can also show up as emotional self-care, so journaling to process your thoughts, to process your feelings, process your day, allowing yourself to feel your feelings. This one, I especially hear that men tend to struggle with.
Yeah.
Because they maybe grew up in a home or they received media where you're a guy, man up.
Yep.
Just get over it.
Totally.
And that's why they say that men tend to struggle the most with seeking mental health care, is because they think that they're less of a person for getting help.
And I will tell you, I think every man that comes into my office has said some iteration of that. But when I look at my caseload, I am almost 50-50 men to women.
Really?
I mean, men are getting therapy. It's
good.
I know. And I feel like just to lift the stigma and be because we have the privilege of sitting in a mental health clinic all day, every day.
Yeah.
So we see the people that come in. And I promise you that there are people that get therapy that you would be like, they're in therapy?
Yeah.
Because it looks like they have it all together. And you know what they do? Because they go to therapy.
Yeah.
You know?
They go to therapy.
Yes. And so it's there are men coming to therapy. So do it if you're feeling any sort of way.
Yeah, absolutely. Some more reading books, listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
Learning a new skill or new hobby to give yourself a little challenge, something to do.
And to not expect perfection out of the new hobby.
Yeah, that's important to say.
I think I'm going to go back to golf because I golf.
Do it.
Well, I grew up playing tennis, right? And I love tennis. I was a really good tennis player. But it got to the point where I didn't enjoy it anymore because it was more stress for me than it was enjoyable because I had to win. And if I didn't win, it was just bad. So as an adult, I got into golf, and one of my very good friends is a golf pro, and he said, he goes, Christy, like, I could give you 3 lessons and you could be really good at golf. And I said, I don't want to be really good at golf. I want to be able to go out and golf and like have a great round and be like, that's awesome. Or like hit 20 balls in the water and still like enjoy the idea that I'm out in the sun with my friends golfing. I don't want to be mad if I don't play a perfect round of golf. I don't want that. Your hobbies should be hobbies because you enjoy them, not because you need to be good at them. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I don't do much of sports.
You work out like a boss.
I do work out. That is true. That is definitely how it helps me with my mental health and my self-care.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are good. I like to do puzzles.
That's a good one.
I love doing puzzles. I love coloring. I find that I really hate most of the adult coloring books I see where it's like, here, color this huge whale with 20 million triangles inside of it, this origami.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to do that. That's stressful.
Yes, I
thought
agree.
this was supposed to be stress relieving.
Totally agree.
So I like those simple ones, and I like the markers that you don't see the lines.
Yep.
But here I am going into perfectionism again.
I know.
It's okay. The lines are fine.
It is.
Just accept it. It's okay.
Focusing on the strokes and what it looks like and like having it be a mindful experience. I think people forget or maybe don't even know what it means to have a mindful experience, but you can do those things and make it a mindful experience.
Yeah. It's also social self-care, I think, goes unnoticed a lot too. We talked about a little bit, like reaching out, like if a friend reaches out to you, you can also reach out to a friend. Say no to social obligations. You talked about that too. Like if you just need to say no, say no. Also prioritizing relationships that uplift you and support you. So reaching out to them and saying, hey, I need this, or let's get together. Celebrating your accomplishments with others.
Oh, that's a gooder.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you also have to surround yourself with people who are going to champion you for sharing that and not, because I think there can be a lot of competition in the world, and that's not a friendship in my world. Like, if I'm not with people that are cheering just as loud for me as I am, I don't want them. I don't need them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Like people who are secretly preying on your downfall.
Yes.
I don't need that in my life.
No. And I've had to cut some people out of my life for that very reason.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not competing with anybody.
Yeah. And again, it's not selfish to celebrate your wins.
No.
You did that thing.
Right.
You did it.
Right. You worked hard. You got it done. I buy myself cake for every marathon.
I love that.
do.
What kind of cake do you buy?
Well, so her name is Amy Braddock, and she just changed the name of it. Oh, Sweet Flower. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so she makes my cake and she surprises me every time.
Oh, I love it.
And it's so cute, and it's always marathon themed. And
like she surprises the flavor, and then it's a person running on the cake.
Well, like one year she did like 26. She did like a 26.2 on the top. One year she went woohoo 26.2. And then when I did my first triathlon this year, and she made me a cake that said, it's like, try your hardest, like TRI, your hardest.
Yeah.
Like she's just cute.
Oh,
like
that is cute.
Yeah, and she's lovely.
That's what I'm talking about.
I will get myself a cake back for everything.
Yeah, I was like, I got through the day. I'm gonna go pick up a cake.
Exactly. Why not? Because there's nothing wrong with celebrating yourself too. And I think some people think I'm crazy, and that's fine. Don't care.
Yeah, think what you want to think. I'm going to continue to do what I need.
Right.
What makes me feel happy.
Right. And when you put that much work and dedication into anything, even your Lego flowers over there.
Yeah.
You know, like that's huge.
Yeah.
Celebrate it.
Absolutely. I do.
Yeah.
And I take it when people compliment me. I don't try and make it less of a big deal.
Right.
Right. If someone is giving me a compliment about my Lego flowers or whatever, I try my best, and I've had to be mindful about this to say, oh, it's not that. It was really easy. And I also don't always feel the pressure to give a compliment back either.
Accepting a compliment is a very high level social skill. People have a really hard time accepting compliments because it feels like you're boasting or like you're not humble if you accept a compliment. And it's like, if someone gives you a compliment, take it in. Like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful you noticed, or thank you for saying that. Like, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of people don't know how to accept a compliment. Like I said, I'm 44, but I feel like our parents are sometimes the worst at it. We're up, like my mom is the best. I talk about my mom all the time because she's like top notch, but she'll do something. She was like, "Oh, Christy, it's nothing." Oh, that was nothing. And it's like, no, it was something.
Yes.
Like, your cookies are amazing. Oh, stop. They're not that great. Or, I should have done something, Yep. It's like, Mom, you are a Billy badass. Like, just like step into that.
Critiquing them. Yeah. You are a Billy badass.
Yeah.
I love that.
So like, do the thing. And I feel like that's even with a lot of my friends, like they'll do something and they're just like, oh, it wasn't that great. Or I could have done it better. I could have done it differently. And it's like, what people don't understand is when you invalidate a compliment, it's also not cool for the people giving the compliment.
It's not, because they're like, well, shit, didn't realize maybe I should stop.
Right, exactly. It's like, I'm noticing you. I'm seeing that you're working hard. I know that maybe you wish you would have done it differently, but I'm seeing that you tried. Well, like, accept the fact that I'm seeing that you tried.
Yeah. And you don't feel pressure to give one back if you don't want to.
That's so fun. People go, oh my gosh, nice glasses. And they're like, nice shirt.
Yeah. I mean, like,
you don't have to do that.
Has my freaking mustard stain from my lunch on it. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, it's just because it's like, we don't have to even out the compliments,
Yeah. Absolutely. Are there any other self-care things that you want to bring up?
I mean, I always say take the vacation, buy the tickets, have the experiences, go sit in the woods for a while.
Yeah, go sit in the woods. That's my self-care. I love to go out hiking in the wilderness. I also think of practical self-care. So we talked about like keeping up with your appointments. Also, finances, that's a big stressor in a lot of people's life. Keep track of your finances, make a budget. Preparing healthy meals, that's a really good practical self-care task you could do.
Yep.
Cleaning, organizing, those are the tasks that Christy said. She's like, not necessarily my cup of tea, but
I will say that when I do things like that, it does feel good.
Yeah. Okay, now tell me, how would you recommend people set boundaries?
This is a good question because, again, it's different for everybody, right?
Yes.
But a validation sandwich is my favorite way, especially when you're kind of nervous about it, where you start with a compliment and be like, I know that you meant well, and I know that, like, I really want to be able to do this. And also, I'm really struggling, and I really need to set a boundary, and I can't do this thing that you're asking me to do. But I hope that you will ask me in the future because I maybe will want to in the future. So it's like it's like sandwich it.
Yeah. It's, what's the one? Constructive criticism.
Yeah.
But constructive boundary setting.
It is. It totally is. Because it's like most of the time when you set a boundary, and I guess it depends on the kind of boundary you're setting. If you want to maintain a relationship with that person, like saying, listen, I get that you want this from me. I understand that. And also, I'm not in a place where I can give that to you. And maybe in the future I would be able to. So like maybe keep checking in. That's okay.
Yeah.
Now, if we're talking about setting like we're kicking people out of our lives boundaries, because we do that too. And right now, all the kids are ghosting people. Like that's the go-to where it's just like I'm blocking and ghosting. I'm never talking to them again.
Yeah.
Not healthy because there's a lot of resentment that still lives in there. If you don't have the conversation with people, it's okay to be like, I've tried and you're just not a healthy person for me to have in my life right now. If you make some changes, like maybe we can work it out later, but right now I can't have you in my life.
Yeah. I love that. I think I hear a lot of times when people set boundaries, they'll say, please don't talk to me like that. Like, just walk away from me. Yeah, you're not a good person for me. Just leave me alone.
Yeah.
That's not really going to be effective because you can't control another person.
Right.
You can't control what they're going to do, what they're going to say. You can only control yourself and what you do and say. So I like how you brought up not only what identifying your needs, but also what you're going to do in response.
Totally. Yeah. And I think when you set a boundary in anger, it comes across as you're the one who's not in control of their emotions. And it's like it somehow invalidates the boundary that you're setting. And then you start name calling, and it doesn't have to get to that point. It just doesn't. I understand that it does. We are all human. I have not always set super healthy boundaries in the way that I needed to set them because sometimes people just piss you off and you're like, I want to be done with you. But also, there's not closure to the relationship when you do it like that.
Yeah. Something that Christy taught me. You said, and I'm probably going to butcher it. You can fix it. But it's when people act out in anger, it's them thinking that they're in control, but really anger is the loss of control.
100%. Anger is the default for most people because it's not what you're feeling. Anger is almost always a secondary emotion, but anger makes people feel powerful. It makes them feel like they're in control of a situation. The louder you yell, the more in control you are. And the more angry you are, the less in control you are of the whole situation. And the second somebody yells, the second anybody raises their voice, everybody stops listening.
Yeah.
Like if you want to be heard and you want your message heard, you got to do it in a way that isn't full of anger.
Yeah. I don't respect someone who yells. I don't respect somebody who throws punches at a wall.
No.
Absolutely not. I lose respect for them.
Right?
In addition to, when I tell clients that you can't control another person, control yourself. Boundaries, how to set them, identify your needs. And to do that, you need to reflect. You need to observe your own thoughts, your own emotions, and ask yourself what would be helpful to me. And like you said, people can't always give you what you need.
Right.
I would love it if someone could give me $1 million.
I know.
People can't always do that,
right?
Unfortunately. Communicate clearly. A lot of what people want or are trying to say is lost in a lack of communication and a lack of specificity.
Yeah.
So use direct and respectful language. So trying to avoid you statements, use I statements. I need some extra time alone to recharge, or I can't take that responsibility right now.
I think I say this probably 97 times a week in my office, that unspoken expectations are just wishes. So if you're expecting someone to do something for you, or you're expecting anything really in general, and you don't state what your expectation is of that person, you're just hoping that they read your mind and then just being constantly let down that they're not reading your mind. And that's not fair. Yeah. So if you need something from somebody to be like, you know what, it's like in a marriage, for example, if you're like, I need you to not leave your dishes on the counter because it really makes me upset that you can't just put them right there. This is a totally not personal experience at all. But if I'm just hoping that he reads my mind, that I angrily put away his dishes every time he leaves them on the counter, and I don't say anything to him, there's no reason for him to change the behavior. Yeah. But if I'm like, Scott, dude, like it really frustrates me when you just leave your plates on the counter and you don't get them into the dishwasher, because I feel like you're just expecting me to put your dishes away. Yeah. And I don't like that feeling. And Scott's the nicest human on the planet. And so he's like, okay, yeah. Oh, didn't even realize that made you feel that way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because things can make us feel a certain way. And if we don't communicate that with people, they have no way of knowing. They have no way to change their behavior.
Yeah. People don't know what's going on unless you tell them.
Right.
That's why I need to be clear. And we were kind of saying this earlier, but be assertive, not aggressive.
Yeah.
You can firmly express your boundaries without being confrontational.
100%.
For sure. And you can avoid that by avoiding language like you.
Right.
Or you should, or you shouldn't do this.
Or having the conversation while you're emotionally elevated. Like wait until you're at a point where you're like a little bit calmer and you've thought about it a little bit more, because having conversations in the heat of the moment are very rarely productive.
Yeah. The last one that I think of a lot is consistency.
Yeah.
Because I'll have someone, they'll set a boundary, they'll do it flawlessly, and I'm so proud of them and I hype them up, and then they'll come back the next week and they'll say, yeah, I wasn't following through with that boundary. Like, it's important when you're consistent. You have to reinforce your boundaries over time to show that they are important to you.
Right.
Because again, if you're not following through with that boundary, if you're not consistent with it, that's essentially telling that other person that you're not going to follow through and that they can continue to do what they're going to do to get what they want.
Yep. 100%. And it's the same with anything you do. It takes a while for something to become a habit. And so it's like, am I going to expect someone to set healthy boundaries all the time? Absolutely not. Like it's a skill that you have to build, that you have to keep practicing in order for it to A, stick, and B, for people to understand that you are taking your boundaries seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So I think now would be a good time to talk about some of the difficulties that do come with self-care.
Oh, yeah.
And boundaries. I know setting boundaries for people that you're close with is difficult. We talked a little bit about this. Family, friends. it's because you're so close to them. And I hear a lot of people, especially since we just got done with the holiday season, they'll come back and they'll say, oh, my family, I can't stand them, but they're family. Can't live with them, can't live without them, right? I'm like, well, you can live with them with boundaries.
And sometimes just because they're your family doesn't mean that you have to spend time with them. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything. I tell people all the time, your body gets to be wherever you want it to be. If you are ever someplace where you don't want to be, you can leave. Mm-hmm. You are not obligated to stay by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. But I think the other thing with setting boundaries with people that are really close to you is that 9 times out of 10, it does not just impact you, because you either share mutual friends or you share mutual family. So you setting a boundary that somebody else in your family isn't willing to set, or one of your other friends isn't willing to set for that person, it can feel really isolating.
Yeah.
And it can be healthy and it can make you feel better. And just because it's not what's right for somebody else doesn't mean that that's not what's right for you.
Yeah. I imagine it can also lead to feeling guilty. Again, going back to the selfish thing, right? But it's normal to feel guilty, I think, initially, but remembering that prioritizing your well-being isn't.
Right. No.
And that's your irrational thoughts coming in, saying you need to feel guilty about this. So it's something I hear a lot, but it's not true.
Right. And if you are, because I know that there are some situations that people are in where, I mean, they maybe don't love spending time with their family, but there is some sort of obligation where there's some part of the family that they need to see or whatever. You only need to stay for as long as it's comfortable for you to stay.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to Christmas at 8:00 in the morning and stay till midnight. Like you don't have to do that. And or if you need to go take a break, build the breaks into your day and be like, you know what, we're going to do this meal and then I'm going to go see a movie and then I'm going to come back if you want to. But boundaries do not have to be all or nothing.
No.
And I think sometimes people feel like they are.
Set realistic boundaries and expectations for yourself. A supervisor at one of my internships she would say, I recommend everyone take a 90-minute lunch at least once a month and go get yourself a massage, pick up some food, and come back to the office.
Oh, bless her heart.
I know.
Where's she working now? God. Can we bring her back?
For real. Can we bring her here?
Oh my gosh.
No, she's great at her job. She works at the women's shelter.
Oh,
she does such a good
that's
job.
really sweet.
Yeah. Another one that can be difficult with setting boundaries is pushback. Some people may try and challenge your boundary setting, and this is where the consistency has to come in. You have to be consistent with showing how important it is to you and following through with the setting of the boundaries.
Yeah. And that I think you're more likely to do if you've talked it through with someone, if you've practiced what you're going to say, if you have a script in your head, like this is what I'm going to do and I'm not going to back down from it. And you have an accountability buddy. If you've got, if you're going into it and you tell your best friend, I'm going to do this, don't let me not.
Yeah.
Like, I know that this is what's best for me. Because if you don't do it, they're going to hold you accountable to that.
Yeah.
And you need that.
I'm a big fan of writing things out beforehand to rehearse. And I'm also a big fan of having an accountability partner.
Yes, absolutely.
Big fan. Yeah.
The more you can go in feeling confident in the messaging that you're stating, the more likely you are to just stand your ground, which we need.
I think related to that is also a fear of conflict. People may hesitate to set a boundary or avoid it completely because they're afraid of conflict.
Right.
That person, again, might push back. Maybe they haven't even pushed back yet. You just the idea of it, or the idea that you might actually have to follow through on a boundary.
It's the assuming the worst part. And I always tell people, conflict is only conflict if two people are fighting. If you're going to go into it with the idea that you're not going to fight back, it's not conflict. That's somebody having an emotional reaction in your general direction. It only becomes conflict if you engage and you get, it becomes a fight. So it doesn't have to be that way. If you're feeling confident in what you're doing and what you're saying and they want to yell at you, that's on them. And then that's kind of bullying, actually.
It is.
Yeah.
It is bullying.
Right.
It's manipulation, abuse.
Right. It is. But you don't have to yell back just because someone yells at you.
Yeah. No, it's actually, you're actually taking more power if you don't.
Absolutely.
What about difficulties with self-care? Is there any that you can come up with?
Time is always the biggest one for me. Time, and I think just people underestimating what self-care is.
Yeah.
Really just taking the time to do 5 minutes and then like a before and after, like we do with DBT anyway, but like you give yourself a score on a scale of 1 to 5 of where you're at emotionally, do your 5-minute meditation, and then take a score of where you're on 1 to 5 again at the end. Because sometimes I don't think we always realize how powerful that time is when you're just doing something to take care of yourself.
I think it would be fun to end on why it's important to practice self-care and setting boundaries.
This is a full circle moment, but for me, and I think for a lot of people, I need to practice self-care so I can take care of other people and I can be who I need to be at my best for the people who love me and for the people who I love. And if I don't put myself first, and if I don't love myself and I don't pour into myself, I can't pour into other people. And that's not fair for the people around me.
Especially when you have a job where your job is to pour into other people and to support them.
Which literally does fill my bucket. I think we get that a lot when you're a therapist. You're like, how do you sit there and listen to people's stuff all of the time? And it's like, I love it. I get to help people. I help people see that things aren't maybe how they're perceiving them and that they can get better. And that is that's a bucket filler for me.
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah.
But I need to show up for those people every day and be the best person for the people that I work for every day.
And you do that by doing the things
by taking care of myself.
Yeah, by taking care of yourself. Yeah.
I'm so good at it though. Like I'm just really good at self-care.
You are, but props to you. Yeah. You need a cake for that.
I'll probably get myself one. Who knows?
Cake tonight.
Right. It was so funny. It was when I was in graduate school. They made us take a class on self-care, and I was like, what a waste of time and what an easy A. And I will say that, I probably use the information from that class more than any class that I had in graduate school.
Oh my God, I need that option.
Yeah.
I needed that when I was in grad school. I think too, it also helps prevent burnout in all areas. It can help prevent the irritability that we were talking about, all those symptoms. It can help promote mutual respect. Again, how you were saying earlier, if you were to show others around you how do you practice self-care and how you set boundaries, that's going to encourage them to do it.
100%.
And it's going to be a reciprocated action.
Yep. Totally.
It also allows you to stay true to your values and your needs. I think when people start to feel angry is when they feel violated. And so if you're practicing self-care and setting boundaries and you're staying true to your values and needs, you can help prevent that. Are any other thoughts
this was
on
so
that?
fun.
It was. I thank you so
Big
much
fan.
for
Thank you
coming
so
on
much
today.
for having me.
We did good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Slay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Christy, for joining me again today, sharing your expertise and thoughts on self-care and boundaries. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Just a final little cap of what we talked about today. We talked about the myths and misunderstandings of boundaries and self-care. We talked about the signs to look out for, showing that you might need to do some self-care and boundary setting. Talked how to actually do those things. The difficulty, the dick.
I think that was a different podcast.
I need some water. The difficulties and the importance of self-care and setting boundaries. So if you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe, rate, review.
All of the things.
All of the things. Do all of them. It's the best way to support me in this podcast. I would also love to hear from those who are listening. So if you have a question about life, mental health, or if you have a story to share, you can either email it to me at life.motion24@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Instagram or send me a DM at life.in.motion24. I'll be releasing a podcast episode every week, so make sure to stay tuned in for next week's episode to hear all about life in motion. Until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye!